Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Cine-Bros podcast, where we talk about the hottest films, the classics, and everything cinema. I'm joined today by my co-hosts Josiah Broderick, Kiki Ragland, and I am your host Dante Velez. And let's get into the cinematic masterpiece in 3, 2. Wait. 3, 2, 1. Let's get into it. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you guys here again.
Oh, we're so glad to be back.
Good to be back.
Yeah, how are you guys doing this morning?
Doing good.
Good.
Yeah, ready to talk some Tarantino?
Yeah, I actually rewatched the movie last night.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's like fresh on the brain.
Fresh on the brain.
It's good.
Yeah, and this is already I've seen this movie 5-6 times.
Yeah,
and it's just
I'd say this
unbelievable.
Out of all Tarantino movies, it's pretty tough, but I'd say it's my favorite of all of them.
Yeah,
you guys can differ, but
it's 1 and 2. It's either 1 and 2 for me.
Yeah.
Either this or Django, which I'm sure we'll talk about that movie too. But it's It's the first movie for Tarantino that won an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
That they actually won an Oscar for, which we will get.
Which is very surprising because, out of all of his filmography, dating back to the '90s, Pulp Fiction, how did nothing, none of those films get? Sure, it was nominated, but nothing won anything, which is
crazy.
It is baffling.
And plus the time that he took on this film too.
Yeah,
he spent so much time and lots of energy as well, and he himself even called this his masterpiece.
Mm-hmm. Last lines.
Yeah.
And just to be clear on this, we haven't even said the title of the film yet, but this is Inglorious Basterds, the 2009 Tarantino film. And we're going to be going into everything about it and kind of starting off with the synopsis of it. And so we'll go into it now.
Well, yeah, it's takes place during World War II. It's the first year of Germany's occupation of France. One of the main characters, Lieutenant Aldo Rain, who played by Brad Pitt. He assembles a team of Jewish soldiers to commit violent acts of retribution against the Nazis. They're called the Bastards, and what they're known for is taking the scalps of the Nazis. And him and his men, they join forces with Bridget von Hammersmark, who's played by Diane Kruger, who's a British actress, but is also an undercover agent to bring down the leaders of the Third Reich. And their fates converge with the theater owner, Shoshana Dreyfus, who's played by Melanie Laurent, who seeks to avenge the Nazis' execution of her family. The big character in that scene, this is the very first scene, but the big character in that scene is Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz. And
we'll be going into a full discussion about
so excited
his
to talk
character.
about him. Yeah.
But, before we dive into, just the overview of these characters, which are brilliantly written by Tarantino. I just kind of want to mention, we were kind of talking about the Oscar Hall of how out of 8 nominations. The only Oscar win that one of Tarantino's films has really acquired over years and years of his filmmaking, and that specific award was won by Christoph Waltz.
And this was kind of his breakout performance too.
It was.
And he was absolutely brilliant. It's amazing to see. We'll get into this, but this Tarantino at one point was even considering dropping this film because he couldn't find the perfect actor to play Hans Landa. Thank God Christoph Waltz came in because I can't imagine anyone else.
He makes the entire film.
Playing that role.
Without him, it doesn't have the same weight or gravity to it. It doesn't have the same focal. He's the focal point, of the evil of the Nazi regime in that film.
And it's crazy because he's. Another thing, just him as an actor is amazing, but the fact that he can act in both English, French, and Italian,
and German,
all in the film, and he can say it
fluently,
fluently in a poetic sense, and he can really dramatize it because that's hard in itself.
Right.
Just acting in general.
Just speaking it in general is already a tough task.
I can barely speak English well.
So, but as you said, this film would not be as great as it is without Christoph Waltz. And segueing into that, the first scene.
The very first scene, which is arguably one of the greatest opening scenes in movie history.
Oh, yeah.
It could be a short film.
Yes.
That first scene. It's just, the tension You know, the tension in that scene, like you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know what he's going to do the next move. You don't know what's going to happen, and then just it's so heartbreaking too and gut wrenching at the end.
Because it really does challenge someone's morality of like, because he is hiding this Jewish family that's under the floorboards.
Yeah. You don't know if he knows that.
Right.
Yeah.
But he wants to protect his family. He doesn't want them to be taken in by the Nazi regime.
Yeah.
But he also is being bested by Hans Landa, and he's being intimidated by him. And Hans Landa, like Christoph Waltz's acting in that scene in particular, I firmly believe is what got him the Oscar.
Yes.
Because he starts off with a bang. Like
It
just surges fear into him.
And you initially think like, well, it's a movie that's only spoken. They only use English 30% of the movie. The rest is heavily dominated by German and French, and then there's little hints of Italian.
Yeah.
So when you first see that it's because it starts off in French, and then you think when Christoph Waltz switches to English, you're like, oh, okay, is this one of those movies where it's just gonna like they kind of just have to force to use English and that? But it's all tactics.
Yeah.
Why he uses English is because
it's all intentional.
And intentional. Yes. Better word. But why he switches to English is because he knows the Jews are hiding under the floorboards, but he knows they don't speak English.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want them to hear what they're saying.
Right, he disguises it as a politeness. It's like he's trying to be accustomed to the people around him and the code switch in a sense, but he's smarter than that. He's called the Jew Hunter for a reason.
He's proud of being called the Jew Hunter too.
Oh yeah.
And to him, it's just all a game.
It is. He's cat and mouse.
Because here's the thing, he goes to that house for a reason because he already knows.
Right.
But he's the only reason why he's just not, jumping to the point of just,
and sending
pulling them, or all that stuff is he's like, let me play this a little bit.
Yeah.
And this specific scene in the first scene, when they first pull up their pipes, and Christoph Waltz, he actually has, and Tarantino did this on purpose, he has Sherlock Holmes' pipe.
Yeah.
The pipe that he's most known for, as in, I already know what's going on here.
Right.
I already know the whole situation. And you can notice the switch up too. First you're just kind of, shooting the shit, just talking and stuff like that. But then it switches as soon as he takes out his pipe.
And I think that is a directorial choice by Tarantino to have him bring out a pipe like that.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's going back to like the classic detective, like Sherlock Holmes, like you said. So it reads that way to the audience that's watching it. So they're like, oh, you can already tell that he is a smart man, and that he has tactics, and that he is one step ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that, on Tarantino's side of things, like, that's just brilliant on his end.
And it's a game.
It's a game. A game.
He's toying with them. Yeah. Like everything he does is a move, and it's like a chess piece.
Yeah.
When the farmer tells the daughters to go get the Colonel wine, he stops one of the daughters and he feels her hand or feels her arm, and that's a tactic because he's actually feeling her pulse and seeing if it's racing, and then that gives it away.
That's
too.
something I didn't even know about.
No,
that's crazy on rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You notice it.
You notice those kind of things.
And also when he goes into the story of just how comparing the rat to the Jews. Yeah, and just like he's like why I'm a good detective because I can think like a Jew, whereas most Germans can just think like a German or German soldier.
No, exactly, yeah.
Right.
But that whole scene, it's just every camera angle, every direction, the acting, just every element of that scene is so well done.
It's well directed, it's well acted, it's just everything about it is intentional.
And it just by chance starts the movie off with such a bang.
Yeah, I'd say it's in like the top 3 best movie openings ever.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And arguably could be the best.
We could go into a whole segment what the best film openings are, but just for the sake of this, I'd say it's top 3 maybe.
And then
and Tarantino even said himself, before we move on to the next thing as well, he said that opening scene was his masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
That was his masterpiece.
He holds that in high regard.
Yeah. You're just like, when the audience first sees it, you're just like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, like you're speechless after that. Like the first time I watched it, I'm just like, wow. Right. Like we are in for a wild ride.
Oh,
yeah, it's the hook, with essays. It's like you need a hook to hook your audience in, like readers or audiences in. Like it is the perfect way to really lure the audience in for this. Because everyone's going to watch a Tarantino movie, whatever it is. But with this, like people are there and sat because of this scene.
Yeah.
But like kind of shifting into the other perspective of this scene.
Yeah.
But Shoshana.
Yes.
Shoshana Dreyfus, played by Emily Laurent. Yeah, she's phenomenal in this, but especially in this scene, after Hans Landa trips the floorboards and murders her entire family. Yeah, she runs off into the distance.
Like that shot too, because it's all darkness inside the room, and then there's that like the only lightness is her running through the distance. And it's just I don't know. That's
it's the lighting. It's the lighting composition that really makes it
so well
terrifying.
And
too.
to add to like put that music on top of it too. That soundtrack too, especially in the first scene. Those two music like with Beethoven's and then the mountain. That's so well done.
It is.
The combining of that is just
like going into her character even more. It's like it really like I feel like she is the besides the Inglorious Basterds, like Aldo Reyno will get into.
But she's the focal point.
She is the focal point, like the moral focal point, because she gets her family murdered by Hans Landa, and then like years later, it still follows her story.
Oh yeah,
and her revenge plot against this regime that took everything away from her.
Yeah,
and how she builds a cinema, and how she eventually, like throughout the film, decides that she's going to plan an assassination attempt.
This would be a perfect opportunity to lay her revenge on the Nazis. Right. She saw this as a perfect opportunity, and she knew Hans Landa would be there too. And she thought this would be a perfect opportunity.
She knew that it was like a mixing pot of of all the Nazi party, and it was the perfect opportunity.
You could argue, I mean, like Nazis, they're awful, evil people.
What are you gonna say?
No, okay. But like when I talked a little bit about like Inglorious Basterds too, and what they do.
Oh, I see what
you know. This is what they do. Like they're like they commit so like violence. So like they like beat the like we can go in, but they beat one of the Nazis with the club. Like they instill so much violence.
Right.
Too. Like you know like.
But they seem so numb to it. Like,
just like they are because they've been doing it.
Yeah, they've been doing it for so long. This is just like everything. But one thing I want to talk about Shoshana's character as well.
Yeah.
You notice. Tying back in the first scene, how he switches to English.
Yeah.
And the whole film scene when she finally takes her revenge and she's playing her film, she, I forget the exact line that she says, but she basically says, "I'm going to kill you all."
She's like, "I have a message for Germany, and you're all going to die. And I want you all to look in the face of the Jew who's going to do it."
Exactly.
Yeah.
She says it in English because some of those authors may not understand what she's saying. So it's her doing the same exact thing.
It's a complete full circle moment for her revenge, because she's taking something that Hans Landa did to her, and then she's like flipping it. Even though she didn't really get to assassinate Hans Landa, she didn't really get that revenge against him. She still, brought down the entirety of the Nazi party.
Yeah,
she
like,
did.
In this universe of Tarantino, his historical fiction, because obviously it's not based off of like historical accuracy.
No, but there are figures. There are figures like Hitler, Adolf Hitler, Winston Churchill's in it too, and then there's other two high-ranking officers, Joseph Goebbels too. But what I think is interesting too is these two there's two different storylines, but they never coerce. Shoshana's storyline and then the Bastard storyline of Bridget von Hammerstein. They never
come together.
No, they never come together.
I think
they're in the same place at the same time.
Yeah,
too, right there in the theater, but they still never coerce or anything like that. Yeah.
And I'd like to touch upon that topic, because Tarantino has been historically great with that kind of writing.
Yeah,
where he has an ensemble cast.
Well, it's also not one of the Oscar nominations. Was the writing of the movie.
Yeah. Like out of the 8.
Out of the 8.
But he is so great at having a giant cast of characters and having multiple storylines, and maybe some of them cross each other's paths, some of them don't, but he knows how to balance those stories out so well.
Yes.
And I think, just kind of transitioning into this next category about the goods, the greats, and the ugly, I think that's one of the goods, maybe even one of the great parts of this film is his balancing of the storylines.
Yeah, I agree.
The
writing is great. Yeah, and this movie too. It's also told in like a storybook fashion. Yeah, like chapters 1, chapter 2, chapter 3.
He always loves doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of like he's known for is separating it, and then also it creates another thing that's kind of funny too is that because he separates it in chapters, it makes it more memorable. Or like even if you're fast forwarding it, you're like, which one? Okay, chapter something. Okay,
it's like a bookmark.
Yeah, exactly.
I know exactly where. Oh, which one's the scene where they do the the basement shootout.
Exactly.
It's a scene.
Yeah,
You know,
which
and-
is so smart.
Yeah.
And I think Kiki, you mentioned that it might have taken him 10 years to write. Or
It took him 8 years.
8 years.
8 years to write the
Yeah.
script.
And you can see how much work
Oh, yeah.
he put into this and how much, he really, I mean, as you said before, this wouldn't have happened without Christoph Waltz. Yeah, but you can see how much effort and how much time and dedication he really put into crafting this, from the cast, from the writing, the sets, everything in this, which is beautiful. So I think that at tying into the goods, that's my good. It's just everything,
Like
the little niche thing.
the shots too, like that strudel scene, and this is why we're a little. We wanted to show we got our little, not exactly strudel, but we got our little donuts too.
Yeah.
Got the milk. So I think you guys
Close
like
enough to strudels. Sorry, Germans out there that are really particular about the strudels, but we have American donuts.
But we got the milk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that scene where actually they come back together with Hans Landa and Shoshana. Oh my god! Oh, that tension in that scene too,
Exactly.
with that music too. That's just deep. He knew who she was. I
Yeah,
feel like he
that's
knew who she
been
was.
that's been. I mean, we kind of have our minds made up about that scene and the subtext behind it.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of discussion of whether he knew it was her or not.
Oh, I think he knew it was her.
And-
The first thing, he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's fun to him. He's like, I'm gonna purposely host this event at your theater. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's doing it on purpose, which is so beautiful. And then if there's anything, it's good, the bad.
And
The good, the great, and the
great.
ugly.
Because
Okay,
I
yeah.
like going into like what's great about it, like Tarantino. What I would say is like the greatest thing he knows how to do is dialogue.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue within this film is paced wonderfully.
Yeah.
Like, between the characters, he knows how to cast.
The
Yeah.
pacing
And
is
then
great.
the dynamics are amazing.
There's no scene I feel like that goes on for way too long than
No.
it should. I mean, I know that there's some people could like that basement scene. Some people complain that it could drag. I thought everything.
People
it was
actually
absolutely
complain
well,
about
just the fact that it was just a very long extended scene. But no, I
It
thought
works perfectly.
It does.
You become connected with even the German officer.
and it's all.
you become connected
It's
with
all
them.
spoken it's all spoken in German, and then at the very end it's in English. But like you follow it all
Oh,
the way
yeah.
through. Yeah.
Well, I think it's necessary to not drag is not the correct word in this. It's like to prolong what's going to happen
Mhm.
in the scene, because you can feel that something really violent and something really bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
They have it go that long because it builds tension.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be that way. If they rushed it, it wouldn't have
No.
the same
And
impact.
that's what Tarantino does.
Yeah, create
Even
tension.
if you look at any
Tension.
of all his films, it's always the calm before the storm.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most
Moments
violent
before
parts-
disaster.
Exactly.
Before
It's
disaster.
the most violent parts of his films always happen while everything seems okay,
Yeah.
and then
And
it
I-
happens like that.
And I think the biggest moment before disaster takes place in that scene.
Yeah,
When-
no, it is. That's
When they order the drinks,
Yeah.
and they're like, how many glasses? And
Yeah.
they're like, 3
3
glasses.
yeah.
And that's what gives it away.
Michael Fassbender's character.
Did you notice that the first time?
I mean, I probably
You see-
watched it when I was younger.
But
and
the
did
way
not
it's
realize
shot,
this.
the way the camera angle is shot is the camera's right behind his fingers, and you see the reaction of
Yeah.
the major, of
Exactly.
the German major looking at him.
No.
And it just,
It's the
Yeah.
framing. He
Being
knew
calm.
exactly how to
Yeah.
frame it.
yeah.
Not only that, Diane Kruger's character as well. If you pay
But
attention,
Bridget von Hammersmark?
yeah, her character as well. When she notices that he throws up the wrong 3,
And she's
it's
just like, shit.
yeah,
Let's fuck.
You get so many different reactions
Yeah.
Yeah.
with that
No, exactly.
specific thing.
And even Michael Fassbender, his character, like, it's funny because when he first comes on, when they first introduce him, he seems more like a Bond, because he's British, you know?
Mhm.
And his character is British.
Yeah.
He seems like a Bond, like, I can handle this situation, very calm, I know what I'm doing. I'm
Very
a professional.
buttoned up, yeah.
Very buttoned up. And he's the one who messes
He
up.
We messes it up, but it's so...
Out of the entire group, it was him that messed up. And
Yeah,
gave
but
him-
they're the one who called on him to do the mission.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is the ironic part.
Yeah.
But in terms of the greats, that scene and the opening scene,
Yeah.
like the acting, the pacing, and just everything about those two scenes, I'd say those are my two favorite scenes among the entire film.
Just the subtle way, like he speaks German fluently,
Mhm.
but the way he was speaking just I mean like your accent is strange. Like where are you? What part of Germany are you from? And then like the major noticed it too. He's like yeah, and then he was immediately onto him. Like he had a reason, but still like the major was like okay, well, let me join you. Can I join you guys?
Yeah, he sits down.
He had a suspicion.
There's that tension. Yes, it's a lot like Hans Landa. Like
No,
having a
exactly.
suspicion.
He's just like
Yeah.
Even his face.
Yeah.
Because it goes from happy to.
Because he catches on quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, moving into the ugly portion of this, something that kind of came to my mind was we were kind of discussing some of the flaws of it, and because no film or TV shows without its flaws.
Yeah.
And I mean, you had mentioned it in just passing conversation, but in Daniel Bruhl's character, Frederick Zoller, who ends up having kind of a romantic relationship with. He tries to. He
tries to
with Shoshana.
Yeah.
He's the German star for this film premiere that Shoshana puts on.
Yeah.
And he
acts so like he tries to be so respectful and nice, and then like he's like introduces her to all like the high rank, and it was his idea to have the German movie at her theater.
Right.
Yeah, have Joseph Goebbels movie at her theater. Yeah, so it was all him.
Yeah.
It too.
It's his fault.
Push Goebbels to do that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's his premiere in his black and white movie. He's like sniping soldiers during World War II.
Yeah.
And he's the star. But at the very end, after speaking German the entire time, he speaks English.
He's
and
like,
sure, maybe he can speak English, but why would he speak English?
Why would he put that in the movie?
Why would he speak English to a group of
And it was Joseph
Germans?
Goebbels' movie who doesn't speak English.
No.
The only reason, what were you going to say?
Like, it doesn't make any sense. The only reason you can say is like...
Transitioning.
Yeah, transitioning to
Shoshana's.
Yeah. So that's Shoshana's speech. That's the
Mm-hmm.
only reasoning. But other than that, it wouldn't make any sense, especially if it's for a German audience. German nationalism. That doesn't make any sense.
If he just had it in mind for the Nazi Party and the Germans, it would have just strictly been in German.
Yeah.
But I think just for the film's sake, it's contrived.
Yeah.
So it can just be for the sake of American audiences or English-speaking audiences consuming it.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's nitpicking at like...
It is. It's nitpicking.
It really is. But, I mean, if we were to pick something out of it, that would be it.
But I want to ask you guys, how do you guys feel about that? Even going back to like not the film not being historically accurate, how do you guys feel about that scene? The theater burns down, all the high-ranking officers died. Like that's not how Hitler. But I feel like that's how that was Tarantino's.
That was his vision.
That was his vision of
It's
how
like the audience, like saying because historically accurate. He took his own life in his bunker, but if you could decide
like how you want him to go out,
want something like that.
Yeah,
you would want something
blowing
like
his brains out.
Like if you could remember history in a different way, I would love to see him getting like almost blown up and caught on fire in the cinema, or shot like Swiss cheese by the Inglorious Basterds.
You'd love to see the Allied forces getting to his bunker in time and capturing him before he decides to kill himself by taking that pill.
Yeah.
So Tarantino's vision, that's how he wanted Hitler to go out and all the high ranking.
You'd want some sort of like
anybody would argue.
Some kind of end bit, little closure of just like, oh, that was awesome to see.
It would argue like if they could choose, they would choose that.
They would choose that ending, obviously, because they would want that kind of poetic justice against him after all the terrible things that he's done. But like speaking to your question of like looking at historical accuracy, like I don't mind it. I'm not like a history buff.
Yeah.
I do appreciate his vision for it, like the same way he did it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like how he twists the fate of Sharon Tate. Like I love how he takes historical events and then changes it.
But I guess it comes down to like everyone's taste too.
Yeah.
Like some people like the violence and that like over the top violence that Tarantino has. Like that's one of his. That's what Tarantino does too.
It's a trademark.
It's a trademark. But then, actually, I'll give my parents, for example. Like, they respect Tarantino. They've seen a couple of his movies, but they're not a fan of, like, the over-the-top, crazy violence of it. Like, I watched Inglorious Basterds with my dad. He loved the movie. The only really nitpick thing and what he didn't like about that movie was he thought that theater scene was just too much. Thought it was too much. But I guess, like I said, it comes down to everyone's taste.
My dad actually said the same thing when I watched it with him. He said that might have been a little... Too much. Too extravagant for that. But I personally enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
I guess that could be another. If some people may argue that would be another ugly, like that may turn people off.
Yeah.
It's overly.
Because if you are a history buff, you'd want to see it more accurate too. You know. But
I guess that's the only other thing is just being too violent in that scene.
But it really all depends on taste.
Yeah, it's just whoever watches it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
But another thing about
That's
Tarantino
pretty
too,
interesting.
like is his trademark too. He's in all of his movies.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So
And that actually is a good point to like transition into this next category because
Yeah.
this is when we're talking about the fun facts.
oh, beautiful.
And one of those fun facts is that Tarantino, like what you're saying, he makes his cameos in all of his films, and in this, he's in 2 cameos.
Yeah.
He makes 2 appearances in this movie.
Yeah.
One is he's in the movie with Daniel Bruhl, which in the black and white movie during the premiere, and then he's actually one of the dead Nazis.
He's one of the first Nazis.
Yeah, they get
Scalped.
scalped.
Yeah.
yeah.
The really graphic scene, but
No.
you know, props to him for doing
Props to him, yes.
You know, and then I guess another cool fun fact I had picked up on was that Donnie Donowitz, the bear
That
Jew,
was unbelievable.
that's an unbelievable scene, and he has a bat that he has all of his loved ones sign.
Yeah.
And apparently, in like with you know looking back historically, it was signed by Anne Frank herself, which is
That's pretty. And
Which
the
is
fact
pretty
that it's the one
mind-blowing.
beating the Nazis.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
also really crazy.
Like that whole scene of just him,
knocking
you just
on
hear
it.
that.
and just like getting louder and
Yeah.
louder and louder, and then like the camera getting closer and closer to the Nazi
Yeah.
colonel, and it's just, and then he's like, he comes up to him and he's like, "You get that for killing Jews?" Like the little medal. And he's like, "Bravery," and then he's just, like, and that music too. That's such a Tarantino style, of, like how that's supposed to be done too.
It's
And
so good.
we also have to talk about too. Samuel Jackson's in it too. That's another fun.
Yeah.
Because he's in it, but he's the narrator.
Yeah,
He narrates the whole
You don't
movie.
actually see him, but he makes a voice cameo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he
the
narrates.
cameo of it.
Which
But
is
what other
crazy.
fun facts have you guys? been
Another
able
one
to
too,
find?
even speaking of Donowitz, is that Adam Sandler was originally going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
cast for that. But what was the movie that he was doing at the time?
It was it was Funny People.
Funny
That's
He
what
was
it
doing
was.
that at the time, but so Adam Sandler was originally going to play the Bear Jew.
Right.
Which
That would have been
re-
interesting.
Yeah, that
to
would have
see
been
his
very, very interesting
depiction.
to see. Another fun fact, this specific one
Yeah.
about Aldo's character is, if you really pay attention,
Who's
Aldo
played by
has-
Brad Pitt.
Played by Brad Pitt. He actually has a rope burn around his neck. And Tarantino himself also said that it's up to the viewer's interpretation. Obviously, he was hung, because that's how you can get a rope burn around your neck. But how he escaped, the story behind that, when he was captured by Germans, all that stuff, is just up to the viewer's interpretation. But it's a very, very small detail that you have to watch. And that's about, that's why he's so, if you notice about Aldo's character, he's so calm in very, very stressful situations.
Yeah.
Because he's like, already been,
Well, he's already. I'm almost died.
Yeah,
I'm almost
exactly.
at the end.
Yeah, so it's just like,
Even at that, yeah. Well, we have to talk about. We will. Well, we have to talk about that Gorlami scene too.
Of course.
Yeah.
But first, I guess
we'll get
my
to
fun
that.
fact of the movie, and I think I mentioned it, but I just think it's this film nearly wasn't going to be made. It wasn't going to be made because Tarantino couldn't find the person to play Hans Landa until Christoph Waltz auditioned. He's like, I found it. Initially, I guess this is my fun. Initially, he was considering Leonardo DiCaprio playing Hans Landa because DiCaprio is fluent in German,
Right.
but he wanted a German native to play Hans Landa, and
In a very different film.
it would have been I think DiCaprio would have done fine.
course.
Yeah, because he's one of the best
He's a great
actors of
actor.
this generation. But I cannot see anyone else
No.
playing the role of Hans Landa other than Christoph Waltz.
and he even has that German look. Too.
He does have that look.
he has that German look.
Some
that
people
German
just
look.
have those German looks.
He's one of those characters, though. He's one of those characters that every scene he's in, he steals it.
He's so good.
He steals that scene. Like it's so memorable every scene that he's
No,
in.
it is.
Oh yeah.
You
It
know.
is.
So
And we'll even touch upon that in one of our other categories.
okay,
right?
cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
But yeah, I think going from that, because we could go on and on about these fun facts, but going to this next category, it is, would you have a prequel or a sequel to this film? And personally, I've been kind of thinking about this, and so I would personally want to see a prequel of Inglorious Basterds, either two film options, two film concepts. One could be Hans Landa and his other missions where he has taken out the Jews.
Oh, you could create a film. You would
Yeah,
create
like it'd be a new
like
film,
that.
it'd be a new prequel.
That would
Yeah.
be really interesting.
It'd be interesting to see his backstory and how he maybe rose in the ranks
Yeah.
to becoming, the status that he's at, or
The guy in charge of the bastards.
or like with Hans Landa becoming the Jew hunter, and then seeing Aldo Rain becoming the head of the Inglorious Basterds. I think
Yeah.
that would be a
That'd be pretty cool.
pretty cool idea.
Those two, same thing, because there's so much. Those are two characters specifically that you want to learn
More
more about.
Yeah.
And they have little hints, like for example, how did he become so good at his job? And the same thing with Aldo, you know, that rope burn, or like, you know, those little hints, like why is he?
Well, they're kind of the ones. Both characters are kind of the ones who've been like wanting to meet each other.
Yeah, for
like,
so long.
They've known each other. They know who they are. And then because remember when Hans Landa captures him, he's like, "So you're Aldo the Apache," and Brad Pitt's like, "So you're the Jew hunter."
Yeah.
Like they're two leaders of
Yeah.
different groups that finally have who despise one another, and now they finally meet. It's like a little climactic showdown.
It is.
You know?
Yeah.
Which is another great scene.
That's another great scene too. Like we have to talk about, like, there's so many good scenes.
Oh,
you know, there's so many good scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I think that's a pretty cool idea what you mentioned there. Now, because the sequel wouldn't, there's nowhere it would really go.
I just
it kind of
you'd have to think about something else, but like I'd be more intriguing if it were a prequel leading up to
Yeah.
the events of Inglorious Basterds.
Yeah.
Just to give them some background info,
Yeah,
and then it just makes that film hit even harder.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of like best scenes, we talked about the opening scene,
We talked about the
Classic.
opening scene. We talked about the strudel
the
scene.
strudel scene,
Can we talk about the gorlami
the
scene?
gorlami scene, because we will. I
Okay.
mean, we also talked about the basement scene,
Yeah.
Okay.
which, you know, has a lot of high tension,
The basement.
and it's, you know, the dragleise and
But
all that.
and we also have to talk about the scene where it's them, where it's Hans Landa capturing
Mhm.
Brad Pitt and
And
the
then
little
Mike.
man.
BJ
Yeah.
Novak.
Yeah.
I like how you mentioned too, because off camera, Kiki mentioned how I didn't notice this, but they're tied up, and he pours them.
He pours some wine and just like, yeah, he's like, how are they gonna drink it if they're tied up?
Which adds to the comedy of it.
It is, yeah, that's a little
Tarantino knows how to write
Yeah,
like
so
dark comedy or
that's-
like, you know.
That's really good, and it's funny because going back to even that capturing scene, as you mentioned, when Christoph Waltz, when it's funny because they're tied up, right? But he's offering to surrender himself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's surrendering
Well-
himself, and it's just a game to him. He's like, okay, you know what? I'm done.
Well, he
I'm gonna
knows.
surrender.
He knows
Yeah.
that the Germans are gonna lose.
Yeah,
he knows.
He's
Now it's
he's gonna play to
He's
the
so
winner.
smart.
Now this is like 1944, almost
Yeah.
1940. This is almost the end of World War II, and he
Yeah.
knows that the Germans are fucked.
He's a smart
He's
man.
so smart.
He comes up. He sees this theater as a perfect opportunity to get out of this,
Yeah.
because he knows he's killed so many people,
Yeah.
and but like the only way to get out of this is to make a deal. So he beat them. He beat them at their own game.
Yeah.
Right.
So, telling them, you know, if I can give you two options. There's this phone, I can inform the cinema, and your plan will be kaput, or I don't pick up this phone, and we'll make a deal.
Mhm.
But if you want to end the war tonight,
Yeah, tonight.
you have to make a deal.
Tonight.
Yeah.
You have to make a
A
deal.
deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he does. Like, it's just like,
Well, that just shows how cunning and calculated he is as a
Yeah,
villain,
he's
as a
3
character.
steps ahead of everybody.
in a way, even though it's that awesome end scene where they, you know, kind of get what he's paid for,
Yeah.
he wins.
Mhm.
though.
Yeah. Either way, he wins.
He wins. Like,
Yes.
he gets what he wants.
Yeah.
He gets his property on Nantucket Island. He doesn't get in a German prison, and he survives, and he's free basically.
Yeah.
And
But he
he
just
makes a deal with the general.
The only thing is before the finishing line, you know, he gets the.
Oh, he gets the
swastika on his forehead.
On his forehead. Because the same thing, if he just goes scot free, he'll just be a normal citizen. And
True.
no one will know.
No,
But he's
but-
like, nah, you know what?
Oh yeah, Brad Pitt. He was not
I'm gonna
going
give you something you can't take off.
Yeah.
And he
Exactly,
does
yeah.
that. But yeah, I think that's one of the best scenes as well. And
Well, I think that scene too
Yeah.
won him that Oscar also.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like that's such a
Definitely.
great Oscar for him. He's like, if you want to end the war tonight, we have to make a deal.
and there's so many quotes from that scene and other scenes.
Woo,
Yeah.
that's a bingo.
Yes, that was specific.
Is that the way you say it?
Okay.
I love even just right there. You said he does it perfectly. You
Oh.
even said like whoever could play Hans Landa the best. We said keep.
Okay.
doing it.
Is that a compliment? Or,
Well, I guess that's a compliment, but I would not match up to Christoph.
Yeah, but he
No one
does an
match up to
amazing
Christoph
job.
Waltz.
But
I-
even like the subtle, like what you just did right there, like the emotional change is
Yeah.
so quick. You know, that's a bingo, and then he turns. Really, is that how you say it? You know, and he does that all throughout
Yeah.
the film. You know, just that.
that change where he's just like, You won't get Hitler, you won't get Goebbels, you won't get Bormann, and you won't get Heimlich. And you need all 4 to end the war. Like, yeah, he changes and is just like, yeah, I beat you. I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. You guys are screwed. You guys are in my hands. Yeah. Like, you guys are kind of like the puppets on the strings, and I'm the one holding the strings. Yeah. So this is my game. Yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, back to the first thing. It's all cat and mouse. Yep. It's a cat and mouse.
That's what the whole film is cat and mouse.
Every scene he's in, except it's cold and calculated. Mm. Like he's 3 steps ahead. Yeah. And then now can we talk about the Gorlami scene?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Because
and that kind of goes into our like quotes like category of like because some of the best quotes are from that scene.
Yeah. Well, he already knows because from the bar scene there's that shootout first of all, and he finds out because he investigates that it's like the crime scene, and he sees that he knows that Bridget von Hammersmark's there, and finds out that she's the traitor and the spy for the Allied forces. Yeah. So that Gorlami scene, when it's the opening of the premiere, he goes up to them and he sees like he knows that she got hurt in that shootout. She's like, and she's wearing the cast. He's like, so what happened? He's like, oh, is it a byproduct of kicking ass in the German industry and everything? And then he's like, he's like a little joke, and he's like, no, seriously, what happened? And he's like, well, I got hurt in mountain climbing. Yeah. Or there, it's all spoken in German. In Bergstein. Yeah. And he's like, Bergstein? He's like, that's what you've got hurt in Bergstein? And then she like laughs a little bit, and he just goes on this hysterical laugh.
Because he knows he's bullshitting.
He's like, really? Yeah. That's the best you could come up with?
Exactly. Bergstein? That whole thing happened that same day. So like, really?
And he's like, yeah, so that cast looks as old as my old Uncle Gustav. When did that happen? Exactly. Yesterday. She's like, oh no, very good eye. It happened yesterday morning. And he's like, yeah, where in Paris is this mountain? Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, I'm just joking with you. I'm just joking. I tease her off. Yeah, no,
there's so much subtext that's within that scene that he obviously is just toying with.
He has the power.
Yeah,
he has that power.
And it's so funny to him.
Yeah.
That's why he's laughing, and that's why he makes them
say their names. Yeah, he's like, Gorlami? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
He's even acting stupid.
No, say it
for me one more time. Like you could see Bridget von Hammersmark when every time he says Gorlami or Margareti, she's like,
she's like, really,
we're gonna get caught. It's terrible. Yeah. And then but the ironically is like the person who doesn't speak Italian the best, who's what's his name?
Is Aldo Ren.
Yeah, Aldo Ren. He's like Dominic De Coco. And he's like, oh, perfect, bravo.
And he goes, Gorlami. Correcto. Arrivederci. Like, those are some of the best quotes from that movie.
And he even at that scene, he could have sold them out right then and there. But he didn't want to.
No, because
this is fun.
It's fun, and he had his other plan of like making a deal with them.
No, exactly.
He knew what he was gonna do. He knew, but then killing Bridget von Hammersmark. There's so many. Why do you think he killed her? Because he already knew he was going along with the plan.
He was going along with it, and I think, she was a part of the Inglorious Basterds plan, but like she wasn't gonna really do anything else besides that. He needed to capture Aldo Ren.
Yeah.
So I think he just tied off loose ends, but also I think he just did it out of spite because he doesn't like being challenged by her.
He didn't know it was her. She'd been kind of like playing it under his nose. He didn't know.
Right. And now that he knows that she was the traitor, he doesn't feel like
that's why he doesn't like it.
Right.
No.
He doesn't like that he's been duped by that.
Yes.
And he's threatened by that, so he's gonna kill her.
It's not only that, it's also the nationalism too, because she was loved by the Germans.
Yeah.
So he's like, you betrayed our country.
Yeah.
I didn't know this happened, so I'm upset. Yeah. It's my pride,
it's the pride.
Yeah, he's like that pride. So he brings her in there, and then this is another fun fact. I'm just gonna tie it. So for that scene, Tarantino didn't want Christoph Waltz to actually choke her, so Tarantino himself was the one choking her. Because he was afraid that Waltz was going to apply too much pressure. But yes,
are you serious?
Tarantino was actually the one who choked her in that scene.
Oh my god, I did not know that.
He probably was like, I volunteer. I guess I'll choke.
So I guess that's another cameo that Tarantino was in.
Like the back of Tarantino while choking out.
It was that pride, and he just feels, and you can even see like the same thing, like he's even willing to do the dirty work too, and he's just so upset. You can see how almost like how fragile his ego is a little bit too.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's
really great at what he does, and
Well-
he holds himself at high standards.
Yeah.
So when he feels like he's inferior or is challenged to being inferior to somebody else,
just
he snaps. He's gonna.
And then he already has it planned out of how he's going to kill her too, because he already has the bag, right? And he's like, "Can you put your hand inside the bag and tell me what you find?" And then she pulls out the slipper. It's like a little Cinderella.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of like Cinderella putting the glass slipper from the slipper.
That
puts it on her
was
feet.
such a great.
It's
scene.
so good.
Oh, that
and then
scene
once
is
he
amazing.
knows it, he's like, what's that? And then now he goes to English. What's that American expression? If the
If the
shoe
shoe
fits,
fits.
you must wear it.
Exactly.
God!
It's just crazy because then he slashes,
Like you see him kind of put together the whole time.
Exactly.
And then he just unleashes on her, and so
Yeah.
you can see that, like,
That
you already
monster.
you can already see he's a monster, but like it's a different monster. Like,
Yeah.
it's a different beast.
But he's a
you know.
pure sociopath.
Oh no, he
Pure sociopath.
Yeah, we could go into a whole breakdown of his
Just
character,
about him.
but you know, but like shifting gears here.
Yeah.
We're going into, like, on a more fun note. Which character would you get a beer with?
Oh god.
Like a drink. For me personally, I would get a drink with Bridget von Hammersmark. See, she seems like a classy lady. She seems fun to be around and to get a drink with. You know, like when she was getting drinks with them in the bar before the shootout, before they got shot in the balls.
Yeah.
I think they were having a great time. So I think
I know.
she'd be great.
I think I know, actually. I did have an opinion. I did have an idea first, but then I think I changed my
You
mind.
changed.
I would get a beer with Lieutenant Archie Hickox, who's played by Michael Fassbender. I think he'd be pretty cool to get a beer with. Yeah. And he knows film, too. It's very good. I feel like we could have a beer, we just talk about some film, you know, and, you know, a cool guy. Cool guy. And, yeah, before.
Very Bond.
Very Bond-esque. Yeah. So I think I'd get a beer with him.
Yeah, I think I'll probably get a beer with Aldo. Just the same thing. Just talking about his past and stuff like
What
that.
was like growing up in Materville, Tennessee?
No, exactly.
You're saying like the Inglorious Basterds have to be crazy in order to do what they do. Like
To the
maybe
Nazis.
they're doing it for a good cause to take down the Nazis,
Yeah.
but they still are crazy.
It's still crazy. So yeah, I think those ones as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have to talk about one character, another character too. Well, that I thought was a scene stealer for the scene, the big scene that he's in.
Oh yeah, going into the scene stealer category. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
Is the Major in the bar scene?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The guy with the big forehead.
The guy with the big forehead. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was in 3 scenes total.
Major Hellstorm.
Yeah.
Played by August Deal.
Oh, I thought that guy was a brilliant actor.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying when Fassbender throws up the 3, and then
He's
behind
the one
the
who
3,
notices it.
he drops it, and his acting in that scene is
Yeah.
stellar. Like matches everybody else in that scene.
Like he's in the scene where they tell Shoshana to come with us when she's in front of her theater, and she's like, "Is this your cinema?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Understand? What have I done?" She's like, "Get your ass in the car." So you don't know where she's going there, and then she's in the restaurant scene, or he's in the restaurant scene, and that's when he introduces himself. But then his big scene is the bar scene,
I
where
totally didn't remember that he was in those other scenes.
yeah. But the bar scene, I feel like it's a lot like what I said, like Hans Landa, like playing cat and mouse, seeing like, is this guy actually like a German officer or is he a spy? What's happening? And then giving it away. But that game he plays, he plays, that is it's just so well done how that happens. And that this is a little interesting fact too. Because it's first where they guess what he is, and it's King Kong.
Oh yeah,
that was Hitler's favorite movie.
Yeah.
That's a little fun fact.
The more you know about Hitler. But yeah, he's amazing in that. But I think another candidate of mine would be Pelia Lepadi. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but that's the main, and he's played by Denis Menochet, and he's the father in the very beginning.
Oh.
He's
such an underrated.
He is in
character.
one scene, and he is completely memorable for that one scene.
And it was like you see his face when Hans Landa is just saying like, that is unless you have something to tell me, and you just see that camera getting closer and closer to his face, and his face breaking apart, just like, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna give it away? Is he gonna protect the Jews? Like, what's he gonna do? And then ultimately he chose his family.
Yeah,
Of course,
his
it's
family.
the natural thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think among all of these like candidates,
you think like the Mount Everest. You
Yeah.
think the Mount Everest, like who stole the movie?
It's
you
Hans
gotta
Landa.
You gotta do Christoph Waltz.
It's Christoph Waltz.
Yeah.
Like he is a supporting character. He's like, but he is so memorable from that movie, so synonymous from that film because of his performance.
100%.
If anybody else played him and it wasn't nearly as good as his, no one will remember that character.
You needed that. That's why Tarantino was willing to drop the film because he couldn't find. He knew that character was so important. It was so important to the film.
But yeah, I think we can all agree.
Yeah. We can all agree. And it was his first Oscar. He won his first Oscar. It was his his breakout performance too. You know, and then that he goes on to doing Django Unchained, which is his next.
And then he includes him in that.
Yeah, and actually he won his second Oscar from that movie.
Yeah,
it's just amazing. That's an incredible run.
Yeah,
incredible actor.
But yeah, like transitioning into this next part, just some of the quotes I love is like Hans Landa saying like, "That's a bingo."
Yeah,
you know.
That was really.
Is that the way you say it? That's
what
you
say.
You just say bingo.
Yeah.
It's just a bingo. It's just bingo.
Bingo. Have fun.
And au revoir, Shoshana.
That's the last line of the first scene.
Yeah. But any of the like say Auf Wiedersehen to your Nazi balls.
Yeah.
And then straight.
Like that's like the little Mexican standoff.
Yeah.
That's like the little Mexican standoff.
Or even the funny ones like Gorlami. You know, that's probably one of the most.
Say it again. Say it again.
Well, I think the last line too of the movie was brilliant too because that's kind of Tarantino's words.
It's Tarantino saying,
you know what,
this might be my masterpiece.
It
could be his masterpiece.
It could be his masterpiece. Like it's just, God. It's like we said, like it's either 1 and 2 for me for this or Django Unchained. Like this is either 1 and 2. I mean, I really can't decide.
It's like 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
It's like LeBron and Jordan. Like like 1A,
like
1B.
Nice little.
Really...
It's perfect that you're bringing up basketball because we're gonna go. It's our sports corner.
Yeah, we can go straight to official rating here.
Good.
Yeah. What would you guys rate this film?
Out of glass, I'll do glasses of milk.
Glasses of milk. How many glasses of milk?
So if we were using 10 glasses of milk out of, I'll give this a solid 10 out of 10 because it's just so
10 glasses of milk.
10 glasses of milk out of 10 glasses of milk just because it's so brilliant and Tarantino himself put so much time and effort and dedication to this film and you can just see it on screen. You know, with it.
Yeah.
So
and what do you say, Kiki?
Since you did milk, I'll do scalps.
There you go.
Scalps.
Wow. What a switch.
I was thinking of either doing strudel or scalps, but then I'm not gonna do it. I think scalps would be more. for how violent it is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, out of 10 Nazi scalps, I would give it a 9.3. 9.3.
That's close to my rating.
Out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
That's mine.
Because
of some of the just because of like the nitpicky things we talked about, you know.
We had a couple more nitpicky things.
Yeah.
But I'd say
overall,
for me,
brilliant.
I'd say I'd put out of film reels,
film reels,
9.4 film reels out of 10. That's my official rating for this film. Like,
9.4.
we were talking about like the different nitpicks and everything, but it is my favorite Tarantino film to date. And so I think that,
But that first scene, just by itself,
that's a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. I would give that a 10 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. If that
10
was
glasses of milk out of 10 glasses of milk.
Yeah.
If that was just a short film, I'll give it all.
It would win everything in the short film category.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that wraps up Inglorious Basterds for today.
Beautiful.
But yeah, this is great. Thank you for the.
Of course. Now we gotta eat it.
We were.
Oh my god! I gotta eat it.
Another thing that's funny too is that the American and the milk as well. It's kind of like
It's like
Brad
contrasting.
Pitt's. Yes, contrast is like Brad Pitt's character.
And then Hans Landa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
we knew that.
This was good. Of course, we put full thought into it. We were thinking on theme for this, but. Yeah, this was a pleasure, guys.
It's always a good time.
Always
next week.
time.
Stay tuned for next week, guys.
Yeah, we'll see you next week for our next film. Thank you guys so much for talking with me.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. So, yeah.
Bye, guys.
Next one. Take care.
Perfect.